Alright, I want to teach you modifiers. Um, it's extremely helpful for modeling. Um, Go into edit mode. Um, I'm not going to go through all of them because there are a lot. Uh, these are essentially, modifiers are just um, really fast ways to manipulate most of your object in a special way. So you don't have to do everything by hand. So you don't have to move edges and vertices and faces around to get exactly what you want, because you could be there for a really long time trying to get exactly what you want. So these are just fast ways to get to achieve different looks. They're also, some of them are also really helpful, like mirror. So if you're doing like a character and you want one half of them to be exactly the same as the other half of them, so you don't have to go over and model the entire other side close to the way you did the other side that you were originally working on, you can use mirror modifiers, so everything you do on one side of the object will be done on the other side for you in real time. Um, there's just a lot of useful things here. Um, but when you put a modifier on an object, it's not finalized, which is great. So if we want to make this cube really smooth, more like a sphere, we can do that by adding a subsurf modifier, which it'll put a lot of edges and faces and vertices into the object, but it's also going to smooth it out at the same time. That's really helpful for like CGI, like movies and things. It's not great for games, but there is actually a method of making game objects where you can take a high poly model that has a lot of faces and edges and vertices, and then use that and gather data from it into an image file, and then make your high poly look like your low poly. That's more complex, but it is useful for games, just not always. Um, Alright, I'll just show you. When you add a modifier, it gets added here in this section. And there is an order, and that order is important. So if you're adding a bunch of modifiers and you're wondering why things are looking really weird or it's not working out well, try using these up and down arrows, which will change the order that your modifiers are in. The order is important. Um, I can't really think of a case right now off the top of my head where it helps, but anyway, when you add a modifier, you most likely are going to get options that come along with it. Some of your basic options that are on everything are your view methods. So are you going to be able to see what this modifier does when it's rendered? Are you going to just be able to see what it does just in total? Are you going to be able to see it in edit mode? And are you going to be able to see what it does without having anything like, if you see we have our original cube here, and then we have what it actually does to it on the inside. If we hit this right here, you won't have what it looks like originally. You'll have just what it did to it, which is helpful because it can get in the way for something like this kind of modifier. But there's always different options. Like your subdivision levels, like how many times is it subdivided. So if you see in here, you can kind of see the cube shape. Actually, we'll turn this back off. If you see this, what it did was it cut each side of this and smoothed it out. So this is still the cube face, it's just split into 4 sections instead of one. But if we up this, now it'd be times by 2, so there's 2 times the amount of subdivision levels, or 2 times the amount of edges in here and vertices. So whenever you add a modifier, there's always properties to play with to get exactly what you want, to fine-tune the look that they're trying to go for. I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not gonna explain all of these because it would take a long time. Just really mess with them. There's also descriptions on most things, or there used to be. I will say though, the helpful ones are mirror, um, solidify. If you have something that is like a plane, which is just a face by itself, and you want to make it thick without actually having to do a lot of work to it, You can add a solidify, like I'll show you. If we add a plane and you want to make this thick, like thicker, we can add a solidify modifier. Just turn this on. Change the thickness. See, now it's turning more into like a cube. It's got more detail to it. You took that flat piece of just 2D material, or that 2D piece of geometry, that one face, and it's extruding to make more. Turn that piece of flat geometry into a more 3D piece of geometry. Um, Solidify is helpful. Mirror is very helpful. Array sometimes, if you want to have, if you want to do a section of something, like if you were doing a ladder, you can do one small square section of the ladder and then use array, and it'll make multiple copies of it. So you'll get the actual length of the ladder. Because if you think about a ladder is just it's a basic shape. You can cut it into one piece, and that one piece gets multiplied a bunch of times, and that's how you get more of that shape. You can take a lot of work out of making a ladder that way. There's a lot of things you can do. Multi-res is kind of like the subsurf, but that's more for sculpting, if you want to 3D sculpt. They're really all I use. But there's a lot of things, like curve. You can make you can take like a line segment, and then add a curve modifier, and you can have your, like if you have a box, and you make a nice curve with a Bezier curve, and then you add that curve modifier, your box geometry will warp itself to fit the way the curve is moving.